So you may have guessed by now, we have just exited a Metro North train at Grand Central Terminal. We've arrived on track 30. We're going to be exiting into the main concourse. The train board up ahead shows the Harlem and Hudson Line departures, and then one on the other side of the terminal shows the New Haven Line departures. I think this is like the 4th generation for these departure boards since the late 60s, when they used a split flap technology to display the train departures electronically. And before the 60s, they were just written in chalk on a blackboard. One of the first things to do when arriving at Grand Central is finding the restrooms, which we're going to do now. The restrooms in Grand Central are on the lower level. When Grand Central was opened in 1913, the lower level with tracks 100 through 117 was called the suburban level, with the level we just came from being the main level, and at the time for long distance trains. Now, no more long distance trains. All long distance trains from New York City leave from Penn Station. These used to be ticket windows, but now they're part of the dining concourse. The dining concourse, much busier place pre-pandemic. And also, this area, which was a seating area for the dining concourse, explains how this part of Grand Central is going to be connected to the new East Side access, which will enable Long Island Railroad trains to go to an even lower level being newly constructed here. We're going to pause for a minute. So, thank you for bearing with me during that necessary stop for a technical adjustment of several sorts. We're going to, had that restroom been closed, we would be walking all the way to the end of this hall and taking a passageway to the right to go to the only other set of restrooms available in the concourse. And now we're walking up the stairs, if that isn't obvious already, from the lower to the upper level. Again, the main concourse, the grand concourse of Grand Central, the Constellation ceiling, Grand Central underwent a major restoration from starting with its 75th anniversary in 1988. And we're just going to go out the main exit here to 42nd Street. We're walking, you can see it's just a clear view out to the street. Before the restoration of Grand Central, there was a huge clock overhead, and I think it was a giant advertisement for a clockmaker like Benrus, West Clocks, Boulevard. Exiting at 42nd Street and Park Avenue. And when Grand Central was built in 1913, Park Avenue, for the length of Grand Central, was elevated. And the northbound and southbound lanes of Park Avenue form the east and west perimeters of Grand Central. There's a plaque saying that Grand Central's a landmark, in case people didn't know. This location is called Pershing Square, besides the restaurant underneath Park Avenue being called Pershing Square. Which came first? We are walking south on Park Avenue, although it's not really Park Avenue anymore. It's a pedestrian plaza created fairly recently. And the pedestrian plaza runs all the way from 42nd to 41st Street, which is also called Library Way for this one block. Now, why might that be? At the end of the block is the New York Public Library main branch, or the Ghostbusters Library. Okay. By the way, it's Sunday in February. It's actually Sunday of President's Day weekend, and the posted temperature is about 30 degrees, but the wind chill is 23. So we may be walking briskly. Ooh. Let's look back at Grand Central one last time before we continue south on Park Avenue. I'm hoping that this walk will be Grand Central to Grand Street. Grand Street in Chinatown, a main part of Chinatown, a main commercial street. The most direct way is to just keep walking south on Park Avenue. Now the better to see the Pan Am building. Oops, I mean MetLife building on top of Grand Central. The Kitano Hotel. Is that Hebrew for the little hotel? Try to beat the light. This is the mission of Salvador to the UN. So by missions and not embassies, but consulates, you'll find diplomatic parking spots and cars with diplomatic plates. Diplomatic plates are now issued by the State Department. There was a time 30 years ago when New York DMV just issued diplomatic plates where they looked like regular passenger car plates, except the first three letters on each plate were either DPL for diplomat or FC for foreign consul. And the parking signs would be printed against a soothing light blue background saying no parking except vehicles with DPL or FC license plates. Let's hope so. We just passed a restaurant called Frankia Vegan Cafe. I don't think this was here 50 years ago. And we missed our chance to cross 34th Street. We may have to wait a bit. 34th Street, in normal pre-COVID times, one of the busiest crosstown streets and one of the busiest streets in Manhattan, period. And at least up until a few years ago, I don't know if it's still true, the intersection of 34th Street, 6th Avenue, and Broadway was among the slowest or the slowest in the entire city, with traffic flowing through it at an average of 2 miles an hour. All right, 2.2 miles an hour. Sidewalk structure for Wolfgang's Steakhouse, one of the fancier outdoor dining structures I've seen. So we're going to do a 180, a complete 180, and just quickly show the entrance to the Park Avenue Tunnel. It had been used as a vehicular tunnel. I don't think it's been used in at least 10 years. But it was built as a railroad tunnel to connect the original Grand Central Terminal, the pre-1913 Grand Central Terminal, to other lines further south in Manhattan. I don't know where it terminated. It's a narrow tunnel, and I think at one time vehicular traffic was allowed to go in both directions at the same time. The 33rd Street station, when we see subway stations coming up along Park Avenue, well, this is now Park Avenue South, when we got below 34th Street. Or 33rd. Anyway, the subways along this stretch of Park Avenue South are part of the original IRT subway line from 1904 that ran from City Hall under Park Avenue South, which I think was called 4th Avenue then, to Grand Central, across to Times Square on what is now the Shuttle, and then up to an initial terminal of 145th Street in Manhattan. So the stations along this stretch have been in service since 1904. And of course, this part of Park Avenue or Park Avenue South, is quite a bit different in character architecturally and in terms of land use from the part of Park Avenue north of Grand Central, and especially north of 57th Street, where it's almost exclusively residential. Here it's a mix, but it's more commercial. And don't think this was an original entrance. Let's all stay together when we're in the city. Can't be separated even for a second. I guess the city's a good place to connect. According to the city bike sign, we're in the Flatiron District, although we're not. Well, we're approaching the Flatiron Building. Maybe we'll see it. Interborough Subway. So that sign definitely predates the 60s. And the cornerstone just read 1927. AD 1927, in fact. We're at 25th and Park Avenue South. Don't know if this is MetLife or New York Life. Somebody tell me. But that's a nice entrance and a nice set of gates. We're approaching 23rd Street. If we were to go to the right, to the west, we would eventually end up at the Chelsea Piers Recreation Area and Hudson River Park. And if we were to go to the left or the east, we would end up in East River Park. and also the northern tip of the Stuyvesant Town Peter Cooper Village complex. Whoops. I don't think they were even looking. For anyone watching this now, well, I don't know if it's this restaurant, but I am smelling something really good. I can't even describe it. Square Cafe. We've walked under a lot of sidewalk sheds in a relatively short distance. So we're at 18th Street. We're approaching 18th Street. So since leaving Grand Central, we've walked 1.2 miles. Are there any buildings left in Manhattan without sidewalk sheds? Let's see. The buildings in the distance mark 14th Street, and we are approaching the north end of Union Square and Union Square Park.
All right, you guys pay attention. Let's go. Come on, guys, pay attention.
50 years ago, this park was considered a dangerous place, and you can't really see it today, but on more than one day a week, I don't know what days, you'll have to find out, the Union Square Green Market is open. It's huge. They have farmers from all over the region represented. Go there. Just not today. Okay, Union Square Park is operating hours 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. After 1 a.m. all the rides shut down. I don't know whose statue this is. There's no name visible from here, but apparently someone who hasn't been canceled yet. Now we have to make a decision between continuing south on Broadway, because Park Avenue South basically ends here, and to continue south and go where these cars are going. You'd be going south on Broadway. I think, or the other choice is to go south on 4th Avenue and south of 14th Street. It actually is officially called 4th Avenue, and that becomes Lafayette Street? Center? I forget. We'll find out. I think Lafayette. All right. Let's go down 4th Avenue. This place is full of landmarks. Governor's Island, 4th Avenue, the Williamsburg Bridge. So this kind of sand-colored pavement is to designate a safety zone for pedestrians waiting to cross. Motor vehicle drivers respect them most of the time. I'm smelling something good again. Where is it coming from? So we have on our right a Duane Reade, and on our left, across the street, a Walgreens. Are they competing with each other? Is it a synergy thing? I just want to get the building across the street. Hopefully it's visible. It says True North above the main entrance. What is that referring to? Alabaster Bookstore, an independent bookstore.
Honestly, would have taken longer. We're like,
nice car. Across the street is a portion of what I consider the Halloween district. There's also a store on 26th or thereabouts, maybe 21st. That Abracadabra, if it still exists. I think we're near Webster Hall. Oh, we are indeed down the block. Webster Hall, a popular performance venue. Amsterdam Billiards, where people go before or after performances at Webster Hall. I really like this set of buildings across the street. I don't think I've noticed them before, and I have no idea what they are. People waiting outside a restaurant for lunch, brunch. All right, let's take a chance here. This bus, the M3, begins here. We're near Astor Place. which means we're also near Cooper Union. The engineering and design school that until a few years ago offered all of its incoming freshmen free tuition. I think they modified that policy 10 years ago, and it was met with a lot of outcry, especially from successful alumni. I'm not sure how it was finally resolved. And this is Cooper Square. For those of you who remember the days when musicians sought to purchase sheet music in person, a major publisher and distributor of music, Carl Fisher, was located here across the street, across the square actually. And this is part of Cooper Union. And this is, and actually, well, Cooper Union has its own sidewalk shed, and it's hard to see the original building. The original landmark building, and I believe someone famous like Lincoln spoke there. This says JASA Senior Housing. That's oh gosh, I don't know what JASA stands for. The J stands for Jewish, and the second A stands for aging. Anyway, it is senior living provided by a not-for-profit. We're sort of on the western edge of the East Village. We're at 3rd Street and Bowery. Bowery becomes 3rd Avenue north of here. So, in a sense, we just crossed 3rd and 3rd. In Brooklyn, at the intersection of 3rd and 3rd, is the Gowanus Canal. This is better.
Okay.
So, what are you doing?
Was that a random encounter? We're just crossing Bleecker Street, which, if we were to take it to the right, it would cut through the West Village. Some other time. Not today. Not today. We will let this cargo. We're now approaching Bowery and Houston, Houston being equivalent to 0 Street. Bowery and Houston in the 80s was an intersection to be avoided, especially if you were driving a car and had to stop for a red light here. It was ground zero for squeegee people. I don't see a single squeegee person. Good for all those who are concerned about a return to the 80s. Look, the white car. Okay. I hear her call her dog Oscar. The banner says Chinatown YMCA. We are not really near Chinatown. This is an area for kitchen equipment, commercial kitchen equipment, restaurant equipment. There's a place across the street called Globe Slicers. So, not to specialize too much. I should have mentioned that if we had turned left onto Houston Street and walked east a few blocks, we would have come across Katz's Deli, which is more than 120 years old. Yona Skimmel's Knishes, the original Russ and Daughters. The original Russ and Daughters location, not the original Russ. And Il Laboratorio del Gelato. So that would be a nice walking, eating loop sometime. We'll do it sometime. Maybe to round it out, we could find a place in that stretch that has good pizza. Or do a comparison of Knishes between Katz's and Yona Skimmel's and Russ and Daughters or Lotke's. So, again, restaurant equipment, a store called Chair Table Booth. We're approaching Delancey Street. We are going to turn left, or no, I take it back, because this walk is from Grand Central to Grand Street. So we're going to continue south on Bowery a few blocks past Delancey until we get to Grand Street. Thank you. Another white car.
We're like covering.
it is unusual to see a mechanical broom out on a Sunday. As well as see, wow, there's a lot of sanitation vehicles. Usually, if there are this many out on a Sunday, there's some kind of event that they are cleaning up after. If you're a sanitation worker and you work on a Sunday, you get paid double time. So it's best not to work them on Sunday unless there is an event. It's expensive. Sunday overtime. Okay, we have to stop here for a second. We are approaching Grand Street. We're going to turn left or east onto Grand Street. Well, no. I would be doing a disservice if I didn't cross Bowery and point out a few places on Grand Street. Places that, if you have interest in food, you really ought to patronize something. Patronize? Come here. Okay, so there are a lot of baskets and brooms, which means they're going to do an intensive manual cleaning today. And that makes sense. Chinatown gets a lot of foot traffic and historically was one of the dirtiest districts in the 59 community districts in the city.
Hey, Adam, Richard.
All right. So we're walking west on Grand Street. And produce markets abound, as well as fish markets. Across the street is M. Kessler Hardware. Only in New York. And remember, they're not dead, they're just hanging inside out. And this could be your next dinner. Someone's next dinner. Okay, this explains all the sanitation personnel. Looks like it is a Chinese New Year event. Yep. And we are actually in Little Italy, so go figure. So here, and we are in Little Italy. And Chinatown. But DiPaolo's cheese, since 1925, almost 100 years old. Prosciutto? Anyone? Or extra large salami? Banh Mi Saigon, I think this is their third location, but, well, look, it's extremely popular, and this was the place when it was just a hole in the wall under the Manhattan Bridge, popularized the banh mi in New York back around 1997. Piemonte ravioli. They make their own. They sell it here. I think they actually make it in Long Island City. And Aleva, which also makes their own mozzarella cheese. And of course a sidewalk cannoli stand. So we are not going to go down the north-south heart of Little Italy, Mulberry Street. We're going to turn back at this point. Well, let's walk on the other side of Grand Street for a bit. Oh. Cafe Palermo, Cannoli King. The best cannoli in New York. Well, there you go. By the way, that wasn't my personal endorsement. I don't think I've ever had a cannoli from there. That's what the banner said. And here's Ferrara. There's Ferrara. This. Whoa. I'm sorry. Must see the gelato. There's also La Bella Ferrara near the corner of Mulberry and Canal. I don't think they're related. Or they had a falling out. By the way, we're kind of walking in a bike lane now. This is it's a protected bike lane on Grand Street, but as you can see, it's violated by people like me. I just became a person that I hate. There was a time when I was using the Grand Street bike lane to commute, and I must say, it is a protected bike lane, but it was a harrowing experience for almost its entire lane from Church Street or 6th Avenue to the entrance to the Manhattan Bridge. Just people here seem to be oblivious to it, or they just don't care.
Did you find out why they're all here?
Okay. Those are people who apparently are not aware of it being Lunar New Year. Let's cross back to the north side of Grand Street. And remember, we passed the kitchen equipment district a little while ago, and across the street is the lighting district. Bowery lighting, lighting showroom, and more. All right. Finally crossing Bowery. That's always a quandary for people who pull into the intersection before they know that they can clear it. Once there is a space, do you yield to them and let them clear the intersection? Or do you exercise your right as a pedestrian to cross on the walk? We're now at the corner of Christie Street and Grand Street, and there's an entrance here to the Grand Street station of the B&D. It was constructed in the 60s, and it was part of the plan to combine the I&D and the BMT into an integrated system. And this park that's on both sides of us, I don't know the name of the park, but in Robert Moses's plan for a Lower Manhattan expressway, I think Grand Street this part of Grand Street would have been an entrance to that. His plan was for a Lower Manhattan expressway to connect the Holland Tunnel on the west with both the Manhattan and Williamsburg bridges on the east. It never happened. It never, ever happened. Okay. So, more, I don't know if this is a parade route or... I think we're going to go back down to Delancey. Let's walk in this parade route while we have the chance. We just passed a person in an NYPD uniform, but the badge is like a multi-pointed star, and that means they're an auxiliary police. I don't even know if they're called an officer. They're civilians who volunteer their time, and but they have limited, very limited authority. I mean, they're given tools to report crimes to the police, and they're often called upon, like in a parade, to provide additional protection, mostly at intersections and keeping traffic or pedestrians from wandering into a parade route. Broome Street. All right, let's walk down Broome Street. So this is the Lower East Side, the tenement area of the Lower East Side, and somewhere around here on Orchard Street is the Tenement Museum. I can't say anything more about it. I've never been there, but I highly recommend it.
I'm a little nice, so you can't be mad about it.
Unusual parking here. By the way, I really like the parking sign at the top. It means no parking overnight. Just the moon and the stars seem so relaxing for a sign that's telling you what you can't do. So soothing. So we're now on Delancey Street. That's another movie on my list that I would like to see. It's been available only for about 40 years, Crossing Delancey. So this structure across the street, built in the island, it looks like they etched out the men and women designation. I think it was a so-called comfort station for the park. It is officially a park. The wall that divides the two portions of Allen Street. Allen Street's the continuation of 2nd Avenue or 1st Avenue. First. Thank you. And this is Orchard Street. Once the center of the Lower East Side bargain shopping. And even recently meaning in the last 10 years, Orchard Street was closed to vehicles on Sundays. Coming up across the street on the right is Essex Market, which is a pretty good food hall. Check it out. And then across the street on the left, kitty corner to us, is the original Essex Street Market, the original city-owned market. I think it's completely closed now. Let's cross while we're waiting. The new Essex Market, I believe, includes a lot, if not all, of the original merchants that were in the city-owned Essex Street Market.
So if Matthew doesn't have school tomorrow.
And here we have the Delancey Essex Street stop, even though the sign just says Essex Street. It's Essex Street on the J and Z, and it's and the M, and it's Delancey Street on the F. Straight ahead is the Williamsburg Bridge. We're going to walk over the Williamsburg Bridge. And when we make it all the way across, we'll be at a third Grand's, well, here we go, either Grand Street or Grand Avenue in Williamsburg. Now, let's take our opportunity here to cross to the median so that we don't have to wait to enter the bridge. This is the wrong way for a bicycle, so I'm going to avoid it altogether. All Alright, we have 2 lanes for bicycles and nothing for pedestrians. I hope that changes shortly. I don't think that's a conforming ramp, but it seems too steep to be ADA compliant. That's my non-professional opinion. This entrance, this grand entrance to the Williamsburg Bridge. Nope. Oh. Okay. Watch your step. I don't think this is original. Oh, wait. Let's see. So, the Williamsburg Bridge was originally completed in 1903, and that plaque was put up, I think it said 2004. The bridge was completely rebuilt, including this pedestrian and bike ramp. And look, even though the pedestrians have all the room that they need, they're going into the bike lane. This is a vast improvement over the pedestrian and bike lane that existed before Williamsburg Bridge was rebuilt. If you want to see what it looked like then, watch the late 1940s movie Naked City. The climax of the movie takes place on the Williamsburg Bridge. I don't think that's a spoiler. But this path, look how wide and open and paved it is, and I'm pretty sure that's not permitted. It used to consist of loose, rusted metal plates, and if you were running across the bridge, you would hear a pounding with each of your footsteps. It was very reassuring at a time when the city was known to have settled for decades of deferred maintenance, especially on their bridges, their East River bridges. Manhattan Bridge for years, probably a total of 20 years, had one side or the other, either the north or the south side, closed to the operation of the subway. Because the bridge was measured to sway too much and had to be stabilized before trains could safely operate on all 4 tracks. So there were periods of years when trains like the D train were rerouted from 6th Avenue to Broadway. I think this was the last piece of the Williamsburg Bridge pedestrian and bikeway to be modernized. And we'll see shortly. We'll see what this part of it used to be. I first ran the Williamsburg Bridge right around this time of year in 1987. So 35 years ago. I don't remember if it was a Sunday afternoon like this or a Saturday, but it was definitely a weekend day. And you've seen so far how many people are on this bridge walking. I haven't seen too many runners, but a lot of walkers and a lot of bikers. I think when I crossed the bridge on a weekend day in 1987, there were 2 other people, 3 maybe. I didn't know there were litter baskets on the bridge. I think it's a good idea, but they seem to be infrequently spaced. Maybe they should have a sign on each one, like on the rest areas for the throughways. Next litter basket, 1,000 feet. You might be hearing the rumble of a train below us. So this bike and walkway, I'll wait till the train goes by. I think you can hear it now. So we're walking above the 2 tracks of the J, M, and Z trains. JZ. Huh. Again, motorbikes. Questionable whether they're authorized for the bridge. Is this a meeting point? It's a gang assembly area. There's going to be a rumble. So until the ramp that we were on was completed, at this point you would get off on a temporary wooden deck and go down a temporary wooden stairway and walk or run or bike on a temporary wooden ramp that brought you down to street level. But I think it required many steps. It wasn't wheelchair accessible by any stretch. And now, I should have pointed out, in case the sign didn't show in the video a few feet back, this is the point where the pedestrian and bicycle traffic are separated. We're on the pedestrian side, of course, the south side, and bicycles are on the north side. That's the same scheme for the Manhattan Bridge. And now you can see the subway tracks. They've emerged from below us, and now they're kind of running even with us. And here comes a Manhattan-bound J train. Pause for a second and whoops. Well, let's see if we can get a good shot here of East River Park, or what's left of it. The park was, that section of the park, all the landscaping, benches, pathways were demolished. And this section is being rebuilt consistent with storm resiliency plans developed after Hurricane Sandy. There is going to be a storm barrier constructed in the East River below. And after the completion of the storm river barrier, the city will construct a new East River Park. The East River Park that is now demolished was itself an upgrade of the previous East River Park, and was completed maybe 15 years ago. So, and it was a substantial improvement over the previous East River Park, which had been allowed to languish, and there were holes in the asphalt pathways. Okay, that's a Hatzalah volunteer ambulance slowly making its way across the bridge. Pause again, and that's the Brooklyn Navy Yard, a portion of it. Here is, hopefully we can see, New York City Ferry, NYC Ferry, leaving the Brooklyn Navy Yard stop, and is going to head to either 90th Street, I'm sorry, Astoria, or Pier 11 on Wall Street. And it looks like it's going to Pier 11, south. Okay. Mystery solved. Bound, probably a J train. Oh, maybe an M train, because now there's a Manhattan-bound M train crossing. Okay, it appears we are at the highest point on this walkway, and the rest of it, as they say, will be downhill. And there's this little crossover here between the bike and pedestrian lanes and what appear to be porta sands. Don't think I want to go near them. Left. I'm not going to point the camera towards it because it's really difficult to see through the other side of the bridge. But to the left, just north of us, is Domino Park. And that's worth a visit. Maybe not on a day that's 30 degrees like this one, but when it's a little warmer. Even just a little warmer. Interesting. Bicyclists yield to pedestrians when bicyclists shouldn't be on here at all. I don't know if as part of the construction, cyclists have to detour onto this path during construction hours. By the way, when this eastern portion of the bridge was rehabbed in the 90s, and so this section of the walkway that we're on now was the first section of the modern walkway. And back when it was originally opened, It was the only walkway slash bikeway over the bridge between Brooklyn and Manhattan. The north side of the bridge and the new bikeway were constructed for many years thereafter. So this was a mixed-use lane for many years. The end. It may be hard to tell watching this, but every few feet the ramp changes from downhill to a little more level, kind of a landing almost. I don't know if that it was to meet some kind of ADA requirement. Train. We were walking above the train, then we were walking even with it, and now the J and the M train will be elevated for the remainder of their trip. It looks like we're coming to the end of this ramp anyway, and touching down in Williamsburg. We're now in the shadows of the automobile ramp. A bollard so that no stray autos go on here, I guess. And we just turned south on Bedford Avenue. Bedford Avenue will eventually go to Greenpoint. And this is Broadway. We're going to walk east on Broadway a bit. Tempting. Well, I'll have to pass for now.
Nice. What is it? It's like next There's a restaurant across the street called Peter Luger. I think they sell meat. Oh, I'm sorry. And then the Williamsburg Savings Bank, or a Williamsburg Savings Bank building. The Williamsburg Bank building was for decades the tallest building in Brooklyn, and it's currently in the Atlantic Center area. I guess now the reference would be if someone asks, well, where is that Williamsburg Savings Bank building? You'd say it's across the street from the Apple Store. And then everyone will know where it is. Or across the street from Cesar's Empanadas. And a lot of people will know where it is. Anyway, this is Peter Luger. Peter Luger with their own truck and their own parking lot. And despite the New York Times review, our entire family loves the steaks. And it's a place we go to celebrate most of our milestones, graduations and such. This is called Washington Plaza, and
It's a terminal for many MTA bus lines. It doesn't look so busy today, much busier on a weekday. And this is a device that MTA is piloting to charge electric buses, all electric buses, at their terminal while they're waiting to board. This part of the elevated, it will continue along Broadway. As it continues along Broadway, it's the oldest of all of the subway system. This is the oldest section. It was built in, I think, the late 1870s or 1880s. And again, now it's the elevated portion of the J and the M train. The bus that just started its engine is going to go all the way to Sheepshead Bay on the waterfront. It's a long trip, but it's an SBS, a select bus service, so it only makes stops at cross streets where you would expect to find a subway station if it were a subway line. If that makes any sense. Anyway, we are going to end our walk right around now, but if we were to continue a little bit longer, the viaduct that you see at ground level will continue as either Grand Avenue or Grand Street. Sorry, I will look that up, and that makes this walk Grand to Grand to Grand. Grand Central to Grand Street in Chinatown and Grand Avenue, Williamsburg. And so to end this walk, could we go to another Grand? There is a Grand Avenue in Queens, and maybe a continuation of this one, but that's about 6 miles from here. And I'm very tired, so let's end here at the Marcy Avenue station of the JZ and M. And this is a tired infrared, and this is what you've been watching.